to start the recording and then for me to welcome all of you and officially welcome everyone to one of our 2025 ISI or Institute for Social Innovation presentations. In case I don't know any of you, my name is Katie McGraw, and I'm Associate Provost for Research at Fielding, and I also have the pleasure of coordinating the ISI Fellows Program. I think we have mostly fellows plus mom, but just to say for the sake of this presentation that all of our ISI fellows are Fielding alums, and they're all working on projects across a range of fields and areas, often involving combinations of research, professional development, organizational consulting, and all in the interest of finding innovative ways to address social issues and problems. And so the benefit of the Fellows Program is that Fielding alumni have an academic partner that they can affiliate with as they continue their work and perhaps apply for external funding or publicize their projects. So today we have a wonderful array of presentations from four of our fellows. And I don't want to forget to mention that we have another set of presenters tomorrow at the same time. So I will put the link for that session in the chat for anyone who is able to attend tomorrow. The way that we're going to work today is that we will have each presentation, and then we'll have time for questions and comments for a few minutes before we move to the next presenter. And then if we have time at the end, we can hopefully continue questions and conversation then. So without further ado, I will introduce our first presenter, which is who's Dr. Deb Bucci, who is a 2023 alum of Human and Organizational Development Program. And I know that this is a somewhat new project of hers she's going to be telling you about. And the title of the project is Financial Wellbeing for Women, the 3W Project, Wisdom, Wealth, and Wellbeing. And I have slides for her presentation. So Deb, let me 1 second to pull those up.
Absolutely. So I always have to start any presentation that has anything to do with my dissertation with thanking my student reader, Linda Urban, who was my rock in getting this finished. So since she's here, I want to again shout out and give her amazing thanks for that. So,
are you seeing the slides now, everyone? Good.
Yeah, great. So ending up in a place that I'm talking about financial well-being seems really so out of context for who I am and the type of work that I've done, but actually it's pretty seamless. So if you could go to the next slides, that'd be great. So the evolution, I think all of us who are on this side of the dissertation phase can look back and see how did we go from this practitioner to a scholar, back to a practitioner, and then to a social innovator? What is that process? And I have to admit, it's taken a couple years for me to really land where in a place that I feel that my research has morphed into some work that is really important. So I'd love to tell you about that. My journey started out as a nurse. When I came to Fielding, I wanted to try and solve some of the big issues that I saw in healthcare. First of all, what is the big gap between helping a patient want to get well and make a lifestyle change versus how do hospital systems really try to facilitate that? My advisor or mentor at the time, who retired pretty quickly after I started, and I'm not sure if that was because of me, but that's a whole nother story, explained to me that that was way too big and lofty of a goal and that I needed to really focus on a bigger picture. And I started digging into the well-being research and started seeing that well-being is defined very elusively. It's a term that's multifactorial. It's very often conflated with the term wellness. So my research was about that. My focus was always on what well-being meant, whether you were a patient, a client, an organization. And so this 3W project, which I'm excited to tell you about, evolved from that journey. So next slide. The foundation that was laid through my dissertation for this work was looking at what the experience of workers as they discussed well-being. And for all of you who finished around the same time I did, you can probably relate to COVID putting a big wrench in the game plan of what research was. I had to do a complete pivot, and I was going to look at well-being in workers across the globe, and I had to change that. And fortuitously, was working in a co-working space and was able to use the people and colleagues in that study, which was became an action research study. Fortunately for me, the members of of the co-working space that I interviewed were all over the board in profession, the demographics. So it was really a rich body. And what I found out in this qualitative study was that there were overall themes about well-being that had to do with belonging, autonomy, some type of balance in their life, and then financial stability was teased out. The most important thing that I learned in this study was that well-being was described very differently with those terms when they were speaking about personal well-being, is what I call it. So when I would ask them, well, tell me what well-being means to you, describe it for me. And I would get responses that were very qualitative, almost aspirational in sound. When I listened to the interviews again, it was that kind of lofty, hopeful inflection in their voices. And later on in the interview, when I started talking about work, tell me what's going on at work. How do you describe your well-being in the work environment? It was a completely different tone. It was quantifiable. It was bullet points. I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. Very different. I thought that is incredibly interesting. And I won't bore you with where that took me. But what I will tell you is, as I started to look at the quantifiable data and I started to dig into it even more after my dissertation was finished, I started seeing this thread that always referenced financial stability that honestly, I didn't catch it before. I didn't see it in the same light. And what this financial stability or instability or literacy issues did was kept people very frozen or very stuck. Um, so I dug a little bit in the first 6 months after my dissertation was finished to see what was this about. So next slide, please. I found that financial stability was a fundamental satisfier. So it underpinned almost every aspect of well-being that was described. And it was linked to autonomy and safety and meaning at work. And it acted as a bridge for me between the search that I did and putting that into practice in my own practice. Here's some of the interesting findings. And I did not put all these numbers all over the slide. I thought I'd just talk to you about it. Some of the findings through several different studies that was looking at worker well-being during that time. Between COVID and the last year of some of this data that I looked at was early 2024. 71% of employees stated that the financial matters that they were involved in caused the most stress in their life. 71% was financial matters. 1 in 3 employees stated that their personal finances distracted them at work. So 1 out of 3 people were completely focusing on the financial issues and that they were either trying to solve, side hustle, figure out, and the financial issues had to do with everything from caregiving for parents to debt that mounted up, all of those types of usual things. 6 out of 10 employees stressed about finances said their health had become impacted by it, that they were choosing lifestyle behaviors that were detrimental to try and self-soothe. It was that they found that they weren't able to sleep, that they were eating poorly, that they quit exercising because they couldn't focus. So again, that's 6 out of 10 people. In terms of costs, it was stated that $300 billion is the cost of stress-related issues to US companies. And that, again, the leading cause of the stress was financial issues. And then on a personal level, the people studied, and the set was 92,000 people, stated that through the study that they did, 13 hours were lost per month due to unproductivity because of financial concerns. So this really got my attention as somebody who's looking at worker well-being, seeing how is this impacted, what is going on with the financial stress. So next slide, please. So for me, it made me look a little bit deeper into what is it about the financial well-being. It's not, was it about the money? Was it the paycheck, the benefits, or was it about how people were experiencing life? And at this point, one of my clients is a boutique wealth management firm. And I happened to have a discussion with a group of their advisors about this and sharing some of the concerns I was seeing about workers and financial stress, and curious if they had seen it in any of their clientele that was in the same age range. And they all agreed that they were seeing a lot more anxiety, a lot more questions. They were seeing a big gap between their older clients who were needing to be in caregiving situations, but not ever having conversations with their children or grandchildren about the topic. So all of those things started to tease out. So next slide. So specifically, one of the wealth managers in this boutique firm, a woman by the name of Brandon Cavanis, and I started to talk a little more deeply. She asked me to work with her and help her build a well-being initiative that she could use as a framework for talking to some of her clients. And many of her clients were women, and women who were going through different transitional periods in their life, whether they were becoming new moms, getting married, going through a divorce, becoming a caregiver, all of those different aspects. And she found that she really needed a way to have some really deep conversations and get to what was most important. What was the root cause of the stress, and what did people want with their life? She found that specifically women clients, when she asked, okay, what do you want to invest in, or what matters to you? What's your end goal? How do you want to live your life? What do you care about? That was very hard to pull out and tease out, and especially if they were part of a partnership or a couple. So Brandon and I decided that some of what we wanted to look at was how we could get at women specifically talking about well-being for themselves, how to define it, what kind of tools they needed to feel more secure financially, and what wealth looked like to them. And we're not talking about, I want to make sure I have $3 million for retirement. It was what did they want to do with those tools and assets that they had. So that's how this project became born. So next slide. So here's the stats. The biggest gap in financial literacy that I have seen in my work, and my colleague Brandon has seen has been specific to women, that women haven't taken a seat at the table. Women are very often not brought into the conversations in their families as younger women or as part of a partnership, a marriage, what have you. It's not a surprise when we look at how we got there. So just threw up a couple of dates here for you. So 1848, New York Married Women's Property Act. It was the first time that married women could actually own property. And of course, New York had led that charge. And by 1990, all states had passed legislation that would allow women the right to own property. Up until then, if they weren't married, some male in their family had to be the owner. Of course, we know 1920 was when women had the right to vote. Doesn't that blow your mind? It's just not that long ago. 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, women could actually open up bank accounts, apply for credit, have a credit card, commit to a mortgage without a cosigner. And this is personal to me. I was a professional dancer. And in high school, I danced with the ballet company. My paychecks had to go to my father because I was not able to have a checking account in my name. I was entering college when this change was happening, and I could have a bank account and pay my own tuition and have a credit card. And our first credit cards had a limit of like $50 back then. Kind of crazy to think about. 1988 was the Women's Business Ownership Act, and that's women could have free access to business loans. That's not that long ago. So when we think about women not having a good facility of understanding what how to manage money, how to open up a checking account, buy a car, write a lease for an apartment, all of these things, it's because my mother had no autonomy in this. She didn't know anything about it. So the generational gap of women understanding this is huge. Women advisors entering the field are still very, very short in supply. Um, my friend Brandon is a certified financial planner. Less than 20% of certified financial planners are women right now. So we're still slow to that field. Women are hesitate to be real and open and honest at times with a man. It's just what has been observed. I have no judgment on that. I'm just stating what we've found. So right now, 2000s to today, 60% of personal wealth is controlled by women. 58% of generational wealth that's going to be inherited between now and 2030 is being transferred to women. And what's happening is women are inheriting this money and have no idea what to do with it, what it means. The gaps of literacy are huge. So what does this really mean? So next slide. We have found that women often are facing these unique challenges. Earning gaps, yep, we're still there. Balancing career life, personal life, having a major delay into their career path, which impacts retirement savings. Healthcare costs for women are more expensive. The debt burdens that women have right now, especially student loan debt, is astronomical. Cost of childcare, education, the impact of transitions, on and on and on. So what we have tried to do you can go to the next slide, Katie, is look at how can we help this gap? How can we help women gain the literacy that they need so that they can become able to thrive financially? Because we do know when women thrive financially, families, workplaces, and communities thrive too. Had a conversation today with a physical therapist, 30-year-old woman, just finished PT school, doctor of PT, young, bright, I was laying on her table to repair a torn hamstring, and she said, "What is it you're doing tonight?" I told her about this presentation, and she looked at me and she said, I need to sign up for whatever it is you're doing. And I said, "Tell me more about that." She goes, "Nobody teaches this stuff. Nobody teaches us, like, we get this paycheck. Why do we have to contribute to this social security thing? What does that mean? Nobody tells us why we need to invest in something and how we invest. Nobody tells us any of this. And yes, it's on me to find this, but I don't know where to find it. And I'm embarrassed to ask. I'm embarrassed to tell somebody I have a PhD in physical therapy and I have not a clue what I need to do to start saving for retirement. So this is what we're up against in all areas. My co-working space is filled with these young, bright, amazing young women who are in code school, and they are knocking out things that I have not a clue what they're talking about or what's appearing on their screen. But they've come to me often with questions of, "I really want to buy a car. How do I do that?" Or I need to open up a checking account. Where do I go? Do I go to a bank? Do I do it online? All of this. So our 3W project is is an attempt for us to bring tools and an ability to have some really tough conversations about this, teach women how to engage in a conversation so that they can be invited to the table or take a seat at the table. And here's the last little point, because I'm sure I'm out of time, um, is I've talked about how women didn't grow up learning about money, that there's still a gap. But we all have a money story, whether you're a male, a female, we have a story about how we learned about money. And money is neutral, but money also can be controlling, it can be punishing, it, it's a fear, it can keep us, it can make us feel embarrassed. It's the topic that we don't want to talk about. And understanding our money story is a big part of that. How did you come to learn about it? What emotions do you have around it? How is that holding you back or helping you thrive? And this is a conversation that we're trying to open up a door to as well. Um, Next slide. So translating this research into practice, we have designed some practical tools of having some money story workshops. Let's unpack this. Let's understand what's happening here. We're teaching techniques of nonviolent communication. We're helping people connect with core values. We're helping women to vision and set some goals for themselves. And we're creating literacy tools. And we're actually using the word empowerment because nobody wants to feel illiterate ever. So through the 3W project, we're hoping to create a learning lab to apply what we have learned in this research into something that is practical and tangible. Next slide. So we've decided just last week, putting in the paperwork to start a nonprofit arm where we can offer education and and have partnerships with universities, women's organizations, financial professionals to help bring this to women all over the place. Our goal is to be able to empower women to have the tools they need to have the life that they want to have and create a sustainable ecosystem for women to thrive and move forward. Next slide. So the biggest thing that I have learned in this journey since 2023 is that the research doesn't end when that dissertation was bound. It just is beginning there. I have found that through the rigor of the research method that I created to do my dissertation, doing the literature review, marrying all that together, that it kept me in a track to get her done and kind of held me in a place smartly for me not to dream outside of what this means. And I'm so thankful for Fielding and this fellowship to be able to now take the things that I have seen has been a big gap. Reach out to some other professionals and try to help move women into a place of empowerment. So thank you so much to Charles for getting me started and to Katie for continuing this. That's it.
Back off of
Oh,
mute, and thank you. That was wonderful presentation, and I'm
thank you.
yeah, I'm so excited about that work. And Charles is here. I and is raising his hand. So I could only call on Charles first regardless, but Charles.
Oh, thank you. No, this is part of my ISI withdrawal therapy,
Oh,
trying to minimize the impact on my mental health.
that's
Um,
good.
Deb, thanks for your presentation. And just a side comment that I used to be aware of literature in the field of international development and women's development in particular that supports what you're saying about the role of financial literacy in women and its impact on society. I mean, if you look at
Yes.
developing countries, if you empower women, you empower the economy, basically.
Yep.
And that's a
Yes.
long-standing finding. My question is about your title, Wisdom, Wealth, and Well-being. So I
Mhm.
heard about wealth and well-being, but I didn't hear about wisdom. Where does that piece fit in?
The wisdom is getting in touch with ourselves, with what we know, how we got to understand our own money story. How has it impacted us? How has it prevented us from going forward or developed habits that aren't serving us well? The wisdom is also about learning the tools that we need around us and able to in order to be able to thrive. It's kind of marrying all that together and relying on as we go forward our own personal wisdom.
And that's what you're going to try to, that's what your initiative is about, is creating that kind of wisdom.
Yes, providing tools, getting in touch with what how we each define well-being and and what are the tools that we need to have in order to understand that and how does our money story impact that or prevent it.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Again
you.
for the presentation.
Thank you for listening. Thanks, you
Deb,
guys.
Deb, I just want to point out that Nina has a comment or a comment and question in the chat about a
Okay.
potential nonprofit that you might be able to partner with.
Wonderful. Nina,
So
great. Yes,
make sure the two of you connect.
yes, I will. I'm in South Carolina, but have spent some time in Boise, Idaho. But I would love to talk to you, Nina. Thank you.
It looks like Linda has a question
Yeah,
or comment.
thank you. Um, Wonderful to hear about this. Deb and I haven't had a chance to talk in a while, so
Yeah.
it sounds like you are barreling ahead. So this the thing that struck me is how much this has to do with sort of being able to have a bit more control of our lives as women. And
Hmm.
the work that Project Drawdown has done, which is climate focused, but really one of their
Yes.
initiatives is, and I'll put a link in the chat in a minute, but it has to do with educating women and around the world and their ability for family planning. And
Yes.
to me,
Yes.
this seems directly related because it relates to how people can work, how they can earn money, how they can have control of their lives for their families. And really they found that educating women and giving them the resources and the ability to have more say and control about other factors in their lives makes just
Yes.
a huge difference on their communities and on the world. So anyway, this
Absolutely.
just seems like a piece of that same puzzle in a way. So really, really nice work.
It is. Thank you for saying that. And there's just so many anecdotes around that. a woman was at a little workshop that Brandon and I did, and she just sat there and started crying at the end and said, I didn't realize that something that I value very much, my personal health, I was not putting that as a priority because I've been trying to give so much money to my church and so much money to another couple other volunteer organizations. And I haven't been pouring into myself, and I haven't even valued that. And so she told us 2 months later that she decided to take some of her money and invest in herself and become a yoga instructor. She'd always wanted to do that. She said, I took some of those funds so I could become an instructor because it's really important to me to minister to the handicapped women in my church. And it was like, wow, just like all of a sudden she just felt like I was doing all these right things, but I hadn't really looked at some of the things that were important to me. So those little things, and this woman is teaching this amazing yoga mindfulness class in her Mission Baptist church and just packing the room. And it's just like, again, that empowerment of her seeing it in herself and then being able to take that and minister to the women that are in her group. It's just a beautiful thing to see. So I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of that.
Have any other questions or comments? Before I go on to the next presenter, I personally want to say, Deb, that when you were going through the sort of history of women's, financial, it resonates with me very much when I think about my mother, myself, and then my 19-year-old daughter. And as you talked about the money story, sort of the generation that lacked that empowerment, what that passed along to my generation, and then the young generation sort of hopefully what I see and hope for her and for her age group as well. So lots to learn, definitely.
Yes, keep talking to her. Keep
Exactly.
talking to her.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the hope, is that there's, new and different relationships with money and well-being. So
Exactly.
absolutely.
Great. Thank you,
All
Katie.
right. Thank you so much, Deb. Everybody is very inspired.
Katie, you muted yourself.
Sorry, I hit mute there in the middle of that. So time to move to our next presenter. Thank you, Charles, who is Dr. Nina Kraft. Dr. Neen is on our screen, and she is an alum who received her doctorate in the media psychology program at Fielding in 2015. And I know she's going to talk about the evolution of her work and her journey, but under the umbrella of topic expertiseit.com. So I will hand it over to you, Nina.
Okay, so I want to make sure that you can see my screen.
It's coming.
There we go. Oh, it still hasn't done it yet. Well, I am Dr. Neen, and you can visit drneen.com for my LinkedIn profile if you'd like.
It's up now.
There we go. Okay. And if I end up freezing, luckily Dr. Katie has my slides. Okay, so let's see if we can do this as a slideshow. So far, so good. So expertiseit.com is the website, and we talk about leverage your learning because we train educated, seasoned women to pivot their expertise into the cloud. And this project creates a blended professional development course for women over the age of 40 to learn how to share their expertise through storytelling and community building using multimedia and social media creation and distribution tools. So on the website, See if it's going to come up for us here. Is it there? No, didn't come up. Is it there?
You may have
No.
to share a different part of your screen if you have a different window you want us to see.
Okay. I don't know why that's not doing it. It says that I'm sharing my screen. Can you see that now?
It doesn't show a share right now. To share,
Crazy. There we go. Okay, so when you get to the website, the whole point was that you can put your brain into the cloud. Okay, are you all seeing that?
yep.
Okay, good. So we have the 3 C's that we build: confidence, cash flow, and connections. So we help people build their confidence in their brand. They get to productize it and then monetize it and then synthesize it. And so as we move down, and you can all go to expertiseit.com to check this all out. We have some testimonials, and there's a list of all the different topics that we cover so that you know what you're going to learn at the end. And it talks about me and have some more testimonials and then proof that I've done what I said we were doing. Let me jump back to this. It seems to take it slow. There we go. So the proposition, which is the call to action, is if you want to get paid before you create your product, if you want to build confidence in your project message, you want to productize your message, monetize your digital product, and distribute your product using the latest media technology, you can collaborate to expand your message. Then we ask them to have a relationship with us. Have a conversation with us by filling out a form. I'm not going to put it on slideshow because it seems like it slows everything down. So if someone goes to the website, they get to fill out the form, like I said. So our follow-up process at expertiseit.com is they fill out the interest form. Then we do a media footprint evaluation of their materials. Then we book them for a consultation at no charge. And then at the end of the consultation, if we feel that they're qualified, we invite them to the U Society. We're going to talk more about the usociety.com later on. Now, since these are all trigger topics right here, anything can trigger something. We're going to use an AI agent to trigger each one of these steps. So right now we're doing it by hand, but in the future, we'll have it through AI. Now, it was nice to hear Deb talk about her dissertation. And here I'm going to just briefly talk about the relationship to my dissertation. So hoping that this will go through. When I click on this right here, it's going to take you to the ProQuest site. I'm not going to do it right now because it might cut out. But you go to the ProQuest site and you get to have free access to my entire dissertation. So here we talk about the study examined doctoral students' perception of social presence, and the results indicated it correlates to their sense of community in online courses with a correlation value of 0.82, which is very close to 1. This study confirms that instructor facilitation of social presence is essential for students to experience their own social presence and sense of community in an online course. The results of this study can be used to help guide instructors intending to use collaborative constructivism design techniques to improve student engagement and retention in doctoral online courses. So I was all excited when I finished my fielding research because I figured this is something that fielding instructors could actually utilize. Now, the relevance, my dissertation results have relevance in the real world because online hybrid courses are trending, membership groups are trending, engagement promotes participation, group growth depends on participation, and participation determines monetization opportunities. Now, when we talk about constructivism, let me go back one slide, and sense of community. So constructivism is building knowledge through group work, social interaction, and problem solving. And then you have collaborative community of inquiry, which Lippmann coined in 2003, which is students asking questions about issues that they don't have any answers to. And then the COI model is what he used to do that, come to that conclusion with through Garrison, Anderson, and Archer, which they put out in the year 2000, which leads to an active, engaged learner. So all of this is quite relevant to the online learning that people are providing. Let me see here. Now, I created this mnemonic based on the definition for sense of community that was introduced by McMillan and Chavez in 1986. So MINE, we have membership, influence, needs met, emotional fulfillment. And so even though I tested this in my dissertation research model, I took it one step further and I created my own acronym for the women's groups that I wanted to create. So I call it feminine, fulfillment, engagement, membership, influence, new knowledge, integrity, nimble navigation, and expansion. Those are the benefits of being in these groups. And the groups I created were social media groups, website-based groups, in-person groups. Let me see. So we're going to start with the Facebook group. So this one is called Women PhDs, and it was established in 2019. And using the feminine model, I was able to vet potential members and create guidelines that my support team could adopt. And we were easily found on Facebook because we had pretty much very, very good descriptions. And so people kind of hashtag and they write in what they're looking for, and then it comes up on Facebook. And let's see, soon we had a waiting list of students, newly hooded grads, and seasoned alumni. And the group was started in 2019. And 2 years later, with no outside promotion, we hit a milestone moment. As you can see, we were at 400 members within 2 years. So the question is, what attracted these members? Under fulfillment, members felt seen, heard, and supported. And members were allowed to post their wins, their needs and concerns, make announcements, and request assistance. And they supported one another with responses to posts, especially concerns and needs. And I'm going to show you some samples. I blocked out the people's names and anything identifying. Let me see if I can make this any bigger. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, this one person said, "Hi, ladies, I'm a student looking for a content specialist for my dissertation committee. My study topic is on motivation and retention. If interested, please let me know." And I begin the dissertation process in February. Another person said, "I've been approached by a consulting group to write literature reviews and possibly assist with research projects as well. What do you think would be an hourly charge rate for this?" And then someone responded, I'm a full-time consultant. Pricing is very personal and to your personal goals. What would you like? What would you like the extra money to do for yourself and how you want to contribute to the market for fellow workers? And then she's talking about, she had more information saying, don't undervalue yourself because it hurts the whole industry. Another thing that attracted members, engagement. So we said fulfillment, and now we're on engagement. Members joined in for discussions as well as other opportunities for engagement. So this particular member, she said, hello, ladies, I'm at a point where I need an editor for my proposal or dissertation, and recommendations are needed. And you see all the responses here from people. Some person was actually a writer herself, and she's promoted herself, and then there were all these referrals from others. Now we're down to letter M, membership. Knowing there's a vetting process raises the value of the group, and the members were doctoral students, doctorates, and professors with doctorates. And the group description was also important. And then you see here, this group is for women with doctorates who have written a dissertation. We didn't want people who had a JD or an MD because we really wanted to focus on the meaning within their dissertation. So doctors and female doctoral students. This is a social group to ask for information, support, share doctoral knowledge, find research partners, motivation, and ways to monetize your degree. We wanted to make sure people knew it was social because we didn't want it to just be flat or for people to think they had to be perfect. It was like, you're going to make friends here. We suggest you use specific icons if you have a request. So like a question mark. Also, please create a Facebook page so we can see your research information, books, videos, business ventures, and link your LinkedIn profile. And we'll have a Pinterest page and a LinkedIn group for professional networking. Please send a private message to me if you have any suggestions to improve our experience together. Now we're at letter I, influence. So knowing that as an expert, one could share their knowledge with peers to influence their learning was a benefit to our members. We also arrange resources under the appropriate tabs, such as guides, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So here we have, this person said, I've just uploaded my latest YouTube video writing a qualitative proposal. Here's the link. So this ended up being put under a guide of dissertation tips. So what attracted members? New knowledge. Receiving new knowledge from members provides peer-to-peer support, adding to the sense of community. And here this person said, obviously she talked to me, the administrator, and she said, hello, doctors and future doctors. And she talked about what she had done and how she was creating a workshop. So that's some new knowledge people could have access to. And we're down to integrity. Knowing that they could trust the posted opportunities help build the integrity of the group. So this is an icon I use for information about different grants that were available and other funding. So this particular one, the research funding was $34,000. And I said, see the details in the comments. And here we had someone who wanted some support in her fielding research. So she said, seeking therapist experience on working with trauma clients. So as people could see that what's being posted is real, that nobody's phishing, nobody's fake, that increases the trust and the integrity. Nimble navigation. Being a Facebook group that was easily discovered as well as having clear tabs, instructions for participation and beyond, help people to get approval from the group admins, such as me, and to know what support they could expect from the members. So the clear tabs that are here for the guides. There was a create guide, and I had written an announcement saying, exciting news, there is a guides section for your dissertation process. The next letter, which is at the end of feminine, is E, expansion. Being able to easily invite qualified peers to have their business needs met, and the possibility for additional interactions with other members, such as reaching out for resources for panelists or to fill job opportunities, gave our group value to the members. These two announcements were about job opportunities. And once again, no phishing, because these are people who are members who can be trusted. The next phase, based on the group feedback, and because Facebook stopped supporting group engagement, it was ridiculous. I'd be posting stuff and we'd have 400 more than 400 members and 30 people would see it, sometimes 10 people. So I was not happy with that. And the feedback from the group was also that we needed to have a mastermind. So we put that on LinkedIn, and it was called the Female Faces of Power, and it was a safe space to discuss related topics to help the mastermind members grow their businesses by addressing their feminine needs and collaborating for success. So this is one example. This person said, "Hey ladies, here's the newest draft of what will be a free PDF." And she wanted to get feedback on that particular version. So after she posts, people gave feedback, and this was in the mastermind. So we were able to dissect whatever her project was and give her some excellent feedback. And from this mastermind conversation, the need for the U Society was realized. And it started out being, the original acronym was Educated Women Entrepreneurs. And then we created a website, theusociety.com. And I'm almost afraid to go here. And then we posted a few video testimonials from members on that website. So let me stop doing that for a second. See if I can share. Oh, sorry. Can you see the U? Yes, there it is. Okay, so the U is the female sheep, and the female sheep leads the flock, and the rams go on the outside to protect it. So we start with saying it's time to lead. And then when you go down, there's a segment here where the training opportunity is, where they can take classes, the leadership education program. You can tell I'm into acronyms. And when you click on that, you go to a page that tells you what that actually stands for and what's offered. Then there's the newsletter, the directory, and then of course the conference that's coming up, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And then there's a form that people fill out if they're interested, and we just encourage them. And of course, there's the testimonials again. Share PowerPoint slide. Share. Okay. Hopefully it'll get back there. Good. So the directory for the womenphds.com site right here. So if people went to womensphds.com, they would find that they could join the directory. And that's so that womenphds.com domain name points to a form to collect the names of the women with doctorates who'd like to be listed in the directory. Additional questions direct them to participate in the U Society, and free membership is available if they complete the directory form. So people who want to be in the U Society, we ask them, did you complete the form for the directory? And if they did, then they get free membership into the U Society. And members receive discounts on the Expertise It training sessions, which is what the leadership well, you saw the area on the website that said leadership training. That's for Expertise It. So we have different ways of pointing people to the Expertise It trainings. So over time, members asked if their peers who had advanced degrees but no doctorate could join. So now we're the educated women experts, and it includes people with master's and doctorate degrees. And I still have a passion to work with women doctorates so they can monetize their message. And then I have a play on words here. I say, you are the experts. And by engaging with one another, we promote a support network for collaborative learning. And we have created the Resharing Research Conference, which will be held November 8th on Zoom. And the website is resharingresearch.com. And this is one of the posters that we created for it. PhDs, are you still sharing your message via carrier pigeon and going at the pace of peer review? It's fun to talk with people and ask them what the issues are that they're having moving forward. But this is all taking people to the whole point of if you need help getting your message out there, there's so many ways to get it done. And we want them to know they can expertise it. Now I'm going to click on this and it should take us to the website. Not sure if it'll show you that. Okay, gotta stop sharing again. It's like funny that I have to keep going back and forth. Share. Hoping this will take us there. There we go. So when you go to resharingresearch.com, takes you for the conference. Okay, resharingresearch.com. But you can see it's what I have behind my head too. Did you know you can get paid to share your research outside of academia? That's where people get stuck. They don't realize that they can do it, that there's all these different ways that they can be shared, AI, podcasting, book publishing, radio shows, etc. And that's what we're going to talk about at the conference. Like I said, it's November 8th. If you're an ISI fellow, there's no charge for you to attend. So please, fill out the form so that you can participate. We'd love for you to do that. These are the topics, and the time is 9:30 to 4. So we're going to have people telling their story of their journey for using AI. They might have taken their dissertation and then become a consultant, done collaborations. We're going to have raffles. The Alumni Association leader for Dr. Diane is so excited about this. She has raffle items already ready to go for our fielding alum. And if you have written a book or want to write a book, want to be an author who speaks, so you can see it says can't wait until November. That's going to send people to expertise.com again. If people want to be a speaker, if they want to register, so we have these little icons here. Then we have a list of the speakers that are going to be sharing their journey. And these are all you members. And at the end, we have our education partner, Fielding. Okay, I'm going to stop that share. I think that I have just that one slide left. Hold on a second. Oops. I went too far. Okay, participant now see. Okay, that didn't work. The last slide here is there we go. Q&A. How'd I do on time?
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, that was fun.
Thank you. It was exciting to learn about all the opportunities for collaboration and community. Hillary, great to see you. Hillary has a question.
Hi everybody. Dr. Neen, oh my goodness. I'm so excited for you because I know you've been working on this for years. And I want to say I'm so impressed with what you've done. And I'm going to be in contact with you because a lot of the work that I'm doing with my ISI Fellows project is around community. And I'm fascinated to
Oh,
hear that there are really important work like this that people need to know about. And so I'm happy to share this I want to see what I can do to help. But I'm starting to gather some folks that are doing different work like that and trying to connect people. So I will be in contact with you, but I want to say congratulations. This is amazing work. And I know that you've been doing this for a long time, and all of the people that you impacted, I want you to know that you have made a huge difference in their lives. I know
oh,
you have
thank
with
you,
getting
Hillary.
these folks together. So just wanted to say that to you. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for your support over the years. It's been fun.
I thought I saw another hand, maybe applause or maybe both. I don't know.
Is that Dr. Susan trying to say something? You're
Great
still
project.
muted.
Yeah, Susan, you're
I just wanted to say congratulations because I've been following your project probably since 2019. And I know I signed up a long time ago, and I am not one of those people who you have seen in a long time. But I'm so glad to see the progress you've made. And I want to see how I can engage because collaboration is so important. And as I'm listening to everybody's uh, yours and Deb's presentations, and I'm just looking at how our work aligns in so many ways. So, my brain doesn't sleep. I had some ideas about some things we might be able to do to collaborate. Because one of the things that we're all doing has to do with wellness and well-being. So I'm last. So, you'll hear about how I'm addressing that and the issues. But I just want to thank you for your great work. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you for participating. Yes, when I was reviewing uh, the Facebook site, I saw a lot of your comments in there.
Oh, really?
And yes,
Okay.
and you know, and that's one of the disappointments I had with the Facebook group is that, you had people who had such high energy, over 400 women who were
Mhm.
trying to interact and engage, and then Facebook just was like not allowing us to talk to each other. I said they had said that they were focused on community groups and they were trying to build them. And so we're like, okay, we believe you. And then it was like nobody
Yeah.
could talk to each other. And the students were just so excited they felt like they were being mentored because
Mhm.
people were sharing so easily. And like I said, we had the guides, and the guides were from so many of the members who were just sharing what they had gone through and saying, hey, don't get stuck. This is what helped me through. And
Mhm.
being able to celebrate when people were finished, hands up for people. And, it's just great to be able to have someone who sees you and knows where you've been and where you're trying to go. And when your friends who are not in a doctoral program just don't understand and get it,
Get it.
you could reach out to, somebody. And it's wonderful. And Fielding has, because I've seen people in other doctoral programs in other schools, but Fielding has that alumni because we're smaller.
Mhm.
We really have that alumni embrace, and because of our missions for Fielding and all the different schools, we're able to cross communicate and interact with one another, and we're always digging deeper for that connection. So it just is a natural thing. So I'm really glad that Fielding is going to be one of our educational partners for this idea for the resharing research. So hopefully everyone in here will sign up, resharingresearch.com. Male or female or other, doesn't matter. You're still going to be able to understand how you can apply this information to what your message is. We just have the U Society members as the ones who are sharing that information. So anybody can benefit from it. So we're really looking forward to having a very interactive, fun time. So thank you so much. Any other questions?
Thank you, Nina. I just wanted to suggest if you wanted to make sure that people got the any of those URLs that you might want to put things in the chat, that would be, or anything that you wanted to distribute, you could put in the chat here as
Sure.
we go forward. But
Absolutely.
I'm very excited for you.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, we want to move along to make sure we get our next speaker up and running. And I know she is excited to present. Our next speaker is Dr. Lisa Elliott, who is a alum of both the Organizational Development and Change Doctoral Program and the Evidence-Based Coaching Program. And her project is, again, I think, going to focus on people in the workplace, and appreciative inquiry into invisible disabilities in the workplace. So, Lisa, I will let you have the show.
Oh, thank you and good evening. I am going to share. Oh, thank you. My mom's on the on this call. She's sharing her heart, literally. So I am going to try, like Dr. Nee, to share my screen. If I could get a verbal yes.
Yes. Looks good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So my project is called Hidden in Plain Sight, an appreciative inquiry into invisible disabilities in the workplace. Oh, it's not allowing me. Oh, there we go. Okay. Um, here's a summary. The research investigates the intersection of invisible disabilities and appreciative inquiry within organizational context, advancing a paradigm shift from deficit-based discourse towards strength-oriented dialogue. It's grounded in the research, in my lived experience as an individual navigating more than one invisible disability, and as a scholar practitioner of appreciative inquiry. So the study employs an autoethnographic and participatory framework to explore inclusive organizational development. Central to this inquiry is the design and facilitation of an online webinar called Hidden in Plain Sight, which convene a diverse cohort of stakeholders to collaboratively envision and articulate strategies for cultivating supportive and equitable workplace cultures. Through this study of how appreciative inquiry can serve as a transformative methodology for recognizing and leveraging the unique assets of employees with invisible disabilities. And in plain speak, what I decided to do is to look at my lived experience with invisible disabilities and my continued research around appreciative inquiry. One of the misnomers around appreciative inquiry, that it is a model truly designed for organization. If you know anything about appreciative inquiry, it's always asking, what is the best of us? How can we bring the good that is happening right here and amplify it? One of the things about appreciative inquiry that I appreciate, no pun intended, is that it is a methodology that can be applied to any and everything. So I wanted to marry these two. So I wanted to look at how might I reframe invisible disability through appreciative inquiry. Well, again, it explores how appreciative inquiry offers a transformative lens for understanding and engaging with invisible, non-apparent disabilities within an organizational context. It's informed by my 20 years of lived experience managing invisible disabilities, relieving the tension between perception and reality in the workplace interactions. It's anchored in appreciative inquiry principles and positive organizational development scholarship. And it also argues that accessibility compliance is the floor and not the ceiling. That true inclusion requires proactive, generative dialogue. And more importantly, it also echoes Stavros and Torres' book on Our Reality is Co-Created Through Dialogue, inviting organizations to co-create cultures of empathy, belonging, and mutual growth. So one of the things that part of my journey in combining these two which bubbled up for me, was this idea in my fielding studies is that self as instrument. If you are an OD student or an OD alum, you may have come across this phrase, self as instrument. So one of the things I wanted to invite myself to do and open myself up to, how might myself as instrument as an OD practitioner be useful in this research? And so just giving out some couple of highlights that I'd like to share with all of you. Self as instrument emphasizes the consultant's personal awareness and values and emotional intelligence as central tools for facilitating change. Using self as instrument enables OD practitioners to build trust, foster psychological safety, and deepen empathy within groups. And as an OD consultant managing invisible disabilities, this approach was integral to the design and facilitation of Hidden in Plain Sight. My lived experience provided an authentic foundation for connecting with participants and advancing the dialogue in invisible disability inclusion. Move this over. Yes. So the online seminar, the centered on this question of how might we shape work culture that champions and supports employees with invisible disabilities, and grounding all the dialogue in appreciative inquiry principles. It took place last year. It was in October, and it was actually it took place during the week where this country celebrates and champions invisible disabilities. And so what I got a chance to do is do a theory informed design built on conversations worth having and AI frameworks, integrating social constructionism, positive psychology, and strength-based organizational development to reframe workplace narratives. I want to pause here to say that part of the challenge with people who live with disabilities, especially with invisible disabilities, is that we often hear phrases, but you don't look sick, or you look good today. And those are meant, I think, if you think about people's good intentions, they are used to say, oh, but it's a way to bring about, I guess, sympathy, if you will. But in our community of disabled people, especially people who live with invisible disabilities, it's also a way to hinder how we are perceived in the workplace. Our interactive praxis, part of this workshop, was to engage participants in definition, discovery, and dream. These are phases of the 5D cycle that are part of appreciative inquiry, and to offer real-time practice in positive framing and generative questioning. The other component here is that there was a diverse stakeholder engagement. I had a broad coalition of employees, leaders, HR, DEIB, professionals, educators, advocates, and policymakers to co-create inclusive strategies for workplace equity during this session. And then finally, we also included a transformative techniques. I introduced the flipping model that is in Stavros' book around conversations we create, to shift problem-focused conversations into opportunity-driven dialogues, promoting empathy, trust, and collaborative growth. Another highlight, which was an unexpected joy for me, was that I got an opportunity to take all of my learnings around that webinar and to place them in a peer-reviewed journal specializing in appreciative inquiry, and it's called the Appreciative Inquiry Practitioner Journal. It was published in February 2025. As you can see here, the AIP Journal is an international scholarly publication advancing the research and practice in appreciative inquiry within organizational and community contexts. The article is entitled simply Hidden in Plain Sight, an appreciative inquiry into invisible disabilities. The publication documents the theoretical foundations and the methodological and practical applications derived from Hidden in Plain Sight initiative. And it contributes to the field by integrating lived experience, appreciative inquiry, scholarship, and inclusive organizational development. expanding the dialogue on strength-based approaches to invisible disabilities in the workplace. Its impact and influence. The Hidden in Plain Sight project has influenced both academic and professional communities through social media engagement and scholarly publication. It has contributed to a broader understanding of workplace accessibility beyond compliance. I have to tell you, prior to promoting the free webinar, one thing that I haven't shared yet was that while I was a fellow with ISI producing this research, I was also a fellow with a nonprofit here in Chicago called Disability Lead. So I got an opportunity in 2024 to be a fellow. So I was able to take what I was learning through Disability Lead and building my network and my understanding around disabilities. And really, as I was able to network, I was able to further understand and affirm what I knew to be true about myself managing several invisible disabilities. One of the things where I talked about self as instrument in OD and building that trust. It took me, I would say, from April to September to network, to continually have conversations with people who either manage invisible disabilities or worked in nonprofit and profit organizations who talked about how conversations surface or don't surface in the workplaces because either employees don't want to divulge that they have an invisible disability, or leaders are not fully equipped in navigating those conversations within a positive frame. So when I decided to connect these two areas, invisible disabilities and appreciative inquiry, it gave a framework for those who were participating in this webinar to begin to have conversations that were driven through a positive framework. So also the insights gained continue to shape conversations around disability inclusion, organizational culture, and positive change. And the integration of appreciative inquiry principles has demonstrated the potential to, I believe, reimagine accessibility as a proactive, strength-based endeavor, setting the foundation for continued progress this year and beyond. And these are my references. I list myself there as well. I'm published. Why not? I list myself. And these are the references that I use to frame and shape the online webinar, as well as the article that was submitted to the AIP journal. And that's all. And now I can't see anyone. Hang on.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That was a
Welcome.
wonderful presentation, and congratulations on the publication and bringing appreciative inquiry into together with disability work. I think that's really sounds like it's a really forward-looking and moving forward both fields. So excellent work.
Thank you.
Hillary.
Hi, I might as well. Great presentation. I can relate in a lot of ways, and I want to learn a bit more about your work and look forward to, of course, I follow you and have been following you for a while.
You follow
I
me.
heard somewhere, I was curious what your thought might be on this is that the different services that are available, or going through this appreciative inquiry, that there's a lot of tools available out there in the workplace that people just don't know about, but also it could be helpful for anyone to have the additional tools that are available. And many times they just aren't widely shared. So I'm curious about what the inclusive workplace would look like, where you're sharing all of these different tools that are available, and not having to necessarily feel like there needs to be a name associated with the type of work style or learning that you have. So I'm curious if that is coming forward more for you.
Well,
Anyway.
I appreciate that question because after that webinar, there was a nonprofit that came forth. And, you know, when you do this type of work, you'll either have an attraction or an aversion to it, right? And so those who were attracted to it really were really hungry around, okay, how do we create a framework within our organization that's going to work well for our leaders and for our employees alike? And so part of the challenge was how would they find those who are, I would say, low hanging fruit, those who would be easily attracted to the idea of having strength based conversations in general within the organization. Let's just start there first. And then never mind whether or not employees wanted to divulge whether or not they had an invisible disability, but how might we create conversation that is strength based? And how might we create conversation from an organizational level, and then from a leader team level, and then from leader to employee? And so I encourage them to start there first, because that is the frame for it. And then you can add any topic you want around a strength-based conversation or a model for change within an organization. So I encourage them to start there first. Part of their low-hanging fruit was that they already had an ERG set up that was, and you know, we're full of acronyms tonight. So ERG, Employee Resource Group. Uh, so with the employee resource group, they had one for Black people, for women, for, you know, young professionals, for, you know, and they had one for people with disabilities. And so they were then used as a pilot, if you will, to figure out how might they would take an intersection between this ERG and appreciative inquiry and have that conversation to see what surfaced up. Now, I have to tell you, they didn't circle back to me, so I don't have results, Hillary. I apologize. But that was something that I took great pride in guiding them through that process. But that's just one way to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other questions. I do see, Lisa, I'll make sure you get the chat because you have a couple of folks who would like to connect around various aspects of your work. So that's exciting opportunities, just lots of ways to connect and collaborate here today, I think. All right. Well, on forward we go. And last but definitely not least, we have our final presenter, Dr. Susan Eddington. I should say Susan J. Eddington. I have learned that there are a number of Susan Eddingtons, so we want to make sure we get the right one. Who we have, of course, is a wonderful Susan Eddington we have with us. She is also a graduate of the media psychology program. And I know she has some other components she wants to talk about that will relate to the current climate in the country, but overall focus and title of her presentation and project is Meaning Making for Black Women. And I'm going to bring up her slides and then we will get her started. Why am I not letting me present here?
In slideshow?
Yeah, it's only good. Oh, finally it popped up. Okay, sorry about the delay there. Okay, all yours, Susan.
Well, first I want to thank everybody for hanging in here to the end. And I have learned a lot and am just really excited to hear about the good work that others are doing. And I was really excited to see that there are so many similarities in our work. you know, a lot of us, well-being, I think, is a big topic, maybe at this point. Can you hear me well? Katie, I see you frowning. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I managed to pause the share. I was worried about that, but no, I can hear you and see everything fine.
Okay, all right, that's fine then. Okay, so can you go to the next slide? So, but let me just first, I am Dr. Susan Eddington. I am from the original cohort of the Fielder Fellows. And I am president. My company is Images Images. I've been in business a very long time, more than 30 years. I'm not just a media psychologist, but also an accredited public relations counselor. My dissertation, let me back that up a little bit. I've done a lot of work in areas pertaining to DEI, excuse me, intergroup relations. Before DEI was called DEI, but intergroup relations really has everything to do with working with various audiences. I'm an accredited public relations counselor, so I do a lot of relationship management, and and having done a lot of lobbying and worked in issues management as a feminist, and a Black feminist, I have retained an interest in issues pertaining to how women are impacted in society and excuse me, and by circumstances in our society. And I'm going to talk about that a little more as we move along. Um, because a lot of this is grounded in history, and it not only looks at where we are, where we were, and how we got here. And I'm just going to make one brief commentary. I lobbied for equal rights. That's back in 1973. And it was astounding to me to hear Deb talking about women who didn't know how to go get a car, weren't familiar with how to get a bank account and all of those things. Now that's more than 50 years. And so it is amazing to me that even though we think we've made tremendous progress, we haven't made tremendous progress. But that brings me to where we are right now. So this particular study, meaning making on Black women in high status positions, was my interest in looking at Black women who were extraordinary exemplars, who had reached the very highest levels in corporate America. I'm talking about CEOs of Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies, and how they managed to be successful despite the challenges that most Black people, most women, and certainly Black women encounter. So Black women in the US are confronted with unique complexities in their lives because we have an intersectional social identity. So we deal with issues that are race-based and gender-based. So the mental health and emotional well-being of working Black women, who are frequently the victims of microaggressions and racist behavior, remains relatively understudied. Now, as we've seen in not just my study, but in a lot of work that I've seen now in the past year or two, people are looking more at these issues, but there's still a lot of work to be done. So we can go to the next slide, Katie. So when we look at the primary issues facing Black women in the workforce, they are racial and gender bias, the pay gap. Black women make $66.4. I'll round it off there, $4 for every $100 that a white male makes. The lack of promotion. Black women don't get promoted based on their education and their skill level. Microaggressions. Black women are victims of microaggressions in the workplace, snide insults, rude comments, just behavior that makes it an uncomfortable environment, occupational segregation. Black women might not be in a workplace where there are lots of other people who share their social identity, and they often might not be included in social groups that are important to the relationships on the job, important to helping you to move up, helpful to insight information about what's happening on the job. And stereotypes. There are many stereotypes that affect Black women, but one that so many people are familiar with is that of the angry Black woman, and assumptions that Black women just have an attitude, have a bad attitude. And so these assumptions predispose people to perceive what Black women can and cannot do and how they would respond, or and assumptions that they would respond inappropriately in some circumstances. Lack of access to high impact projects. We know that you have to do the highly visible projects. You have to have the opportunity to show what you can do. And if you don't have the opportunity to prove that you have the talent and the skills, then it is assumed that you don't. Isolation at senior levels. When Black women do achieve these senior level roles, they're isolated. Again, they've got a different kind of isolation. At the beginning, they might be the preferred pet. Oh, we promoted this Black woman and then she's special and, she's so phenomenal. And then when the novelty wears off, then it's questioning and doubting your ability to do all of the things that you can do. And that brings another kind of challenge for Black women in isolation, because you don't have that camaraderie with people on your peer level. And the burden of DEI work. Black women are often just expected to do it. Limited management support, that is, I think, goes back to when you don't have the social relationships that get you to where you want to be, that people who you can have a drink with after work, you go into dinner with after work, where you can just talk about the issues that you're facing, where you can get advice and guidance. Without that, you are not going to move up. You do not feel supported. And just the outright discrimination, because yes, there is discrimination and bias in our community. And in 2025, we see that it is now on full blast and has become in some circles socially acceptable. And then the lack of psychological safety, which I think is something that was just mentioned. I think Lisa mentioned psychological safety, but it's a big issue. If you don't feel supported at work, if you don't feel that you can just be comfortable and do your job and be your best, then it brings on undue stress. Next slide, please, Katie. Excuse me. So let's just put this all in context. Until 2025, because we'll talk about 2025 in a minute, Black women in the US had steadily increased their presence in the workforce. As of February 2024, Black women saw their labor force participation rate rise to 63.4% from 62.9%, and their unemployment rate decreased to 4.4% from 4.8%. Despite this good news, Black women continue to face systemic disparities, including the second highest reported gender wage gap compared to white men, which we discussed a couple of minutes ago. Black women hold 4.0% of management positions and a mere 1.4% of C-suite positions, much lower than their share of the workforce, which is 7.4%. 90% of women of color in leadership agree that systemic bias and discrimination hold women back in the workplace, not just women of color, but actually it's perceived to hold women back. Next slide, please. So this chart is a representation, and you can see the Black women are severely underrepresented in senior leadership. So Black women make up 7.4% of the US population, but 1.6% of all VP roles, whereas white men, who make up 35% of the US population, make up 57% of the senior vice presidential roles. And when you move over to the C-suite positions, Black women hold 1.4%, and white males hold 68%. Next slide, please. So this might be a bit difficult to see, but I'll try to explain this. White men are the only group vastly overrepresented at the top of corporate America. They make up a tiered third of entry-level workers when they start. So white males are the, let's say over here, look over here, the kind of tan color. So, and you look down at the bottom, entry level, and you'll see the racial scale over there to your right. This is where they are when they come in and where they all start. But over here, you'll see who moves up the ladder, who makes it to the C-suite, and who doesn't. And you'll see that based on race. So white males make it to the top overwhelmingly. Asian men make it to the top next. Black men next. And then you look at women, white women do well. They do better than other women. Asian women are next, then Black women, and then Latinas generally do the worst. Next slide, please. So Black women have been 12% of the federal workforce, overrepresented when compared to their 7% of the overall US labor workforce. But in 2025 cuts to the federal workforce disproportionately hit jobs in education, health, and community-facing roles, the sectors where Black women are most often found. Reducing the federal budget also affects state and local budgets, particularly the quote-unquote pink-collar jobs like female clerical and administrative workers, community and personal service workers, and sales workers. These are jobs that are all typically held by Black women. So, when you talk about, I think that it was, when we talk about the impact of women in the workforce and their economic contributions, they're not just to their home. It's not just their own personal finances that are impacted, it's society overall, and there's a tremendous ripple effect. Can we try it? Go to the next slide, please. So we have a new reality in 2025. In 2024, as I just discussed, Black women were doing well and moving ahead. The finances were not moving appropriately, but Black women were in the workforce. Now, nearly 300,000 Black women left the workforce between April and June 2025. The labor force participation rate for Black women dropped below that of Latinas for the first time in over a year, and more than 518,000 Black women still haven't returned to the labor force since the pandemic began, leaving their real unemployment rate just above 10%. Can we have the next slide, please? So there is, as I know we're all aware, a federal attack on DEI. This was virtually the first effort when the new president took office. So his goal was to terminate diversity, equity, and inclusion offices, positions, and programs in the federal government. As I said, because Black women are overrepresented in the federal workplace, this had a tremendous impact because you saw many Black women in those roles. The mandate said terminate equity-related grants and contracts, repeal Prior executive orders designed to ensure that equal opportunity in the workplace, including a decades-old executive order from the Johnson administration requiring contractors receiving federal funds to take active steps to prevent discrimination and address barriers to employment opportunities. It directed federal agencies to contractually obligate federal contractors and grantees to certify that they do not operate any programs promoting DEI that violate any applicable federal anti-discrimination laws. Anti-discrimination, as you know, has been redefined, while making clear that President Trump considers DEI to be illegal and immoral. Excuse me. It challenged the programs of publicly traded corporations, large nonprofits, philanthropic foundations, professional associations, and institutions of higher education that are designed to advance equity, including by threatening legal action with the obvious goal of chilling their programs. And it issued guidance that may seek to limit what state and local educational agencies and institutions of higher education can do to ensure equal access to education. Next slide, please. So there has been a corporate response. 1 in 8 companies are eliminating or reducing their DEI programs in 2025. Among companies that have maintained or reduced DEI funding, 11% say they are very, about 4%, or somewhat likely, 7%, to eliminate their DEI program in 2025. Another 37% claim elimination is not very likely, while 32% say it is not likely at all. About 19% remain uncertain about their plans. Even among companies that do not anticipate eliminating their DEI programs in 2025, 8% say they are very or somewhat likely to phase them out within the next 4 years. Now, this is what they are considering doing. Those who've taken these positions have said that they are influenced by the current political environment. Next slide, please. There is good news. Executives remain committed. Many executives remain committed to their company's efforts. 85% of companies report that their executive teams are just as committed or even more to building a representative workforce and fostering an inclusive culture than they were a year ago. The financial commitment also remains strong. 58% of organizations report no change in funding for these efforts in 2025. 23% are increasing funding, and only 19% are decreasing funding. And data is still relevant. 86% of companies say they won't stop collecting employee or applicant demographic data, since access to this data helps companies understand how employee sentiment, hiring, promotions, and more might vary based on a demographic group. Next slide, please. We should all be aware, I'm sure we all are aware, of the assault on feminism. In rejection of today's continued demands for respect, equity, and parity in their professional and personal lives, we now see the promotion of the trad wives movement. This is a call for the return of the patriarchy. The trad wife movement is an international movement of women who advocate a return to traditional gender norms through submitting to their husbands and promoting domesticity. The trad wife movement showcases that domestic life is ideal, with women taking on roles as caretakers, cooking, cleaning, and raising children. The movement promotes outdated gender roles, reinforces financial dependence on men, and is intended to reverse progress in the fight for gender equality. And I also want to note that as a media psychologist, I'm always mindful of how stories are sold, and as a public relations counselor, how stories are told, how stories are sold. And I've noticed that when you look at some of the new movies that have come out, some of the new series, they're promoting trad wives. And there is now a magazine that would be comparable to Cosmopolitan, targeting maybe that age group, that particular demographic, that promotes a trad wife lifestyle. And then if you look at commercials, you will see when you look at the attire, you can look in department stores and you can look at the attire and see that there is a more conservative approach to attire for some. And that all of this, when you look at stories that are in the newspapers, it all has an impact on how we perceive the acceptability of this particular lifestyle. So the trad wife message uh, really took hold during the pandemic, during the COVID era. And there were women who embraced it on TikTok and thought, oh, this is wonderful. And so they have eventually grown as influencers. And their story is that you could be at home and be taken care of by your husband, and that's assuming that your husband is affluent and that this is a good life, this is the best life. And that might work for some people. It doesn't work for everyone. For one thing, we have so many single parents, so many women who are heads of households, so many women who have no desire to be a wife and have a husband take care of them. And these stories are told over and over because that's the way that you get people to model behavior. So they see the story, and that's the social cognitive theory. You embrace that, you accept that. They're heuristics. You see it all the time, and that's what comes to mind instantly. So we have to be mindful of the content that sells stories that undermined feminism. There was a story on, and I do believe it was 60 Minutes, where they interviewed a couple that embraced the trad wife model. And the wife stayed at home, and the husband made all of the decisions, not just for the wife, but for the family. And what was amazing to me was the wife had even determined that the husband, which was one big aspect of this story, that the wife didn't need to make a decision about who to vote for. The husband would just make the decision and determine what was best for the family. So this isn't going away. This is, I think, just beginning to gain momentum, and we will see more stories because it all has everything to do with who owns the media and who determines what stories are acceptable and what stories are not. If we can go to the next slide, please. So we go back to Black women in self-care, and as I said, my comments echo the need for well-being. And when I designed this study, it wasn't with the understanding that Black women would be the only one who benefited, because gender issues affect most women. But Black women are generally most affected and suffer the most deleterious consequences. So the intention was to look at how do people take care of themselves? How do you maintain your well-being, especially when we're looking at the women who've achieved the highest echelons of corporate structures, where they have less support because there are fewer numbers, fewer of them? How do they manage? So we begin with Black women prioritize mental self-care, 21% more than physical self-care. They highlighting an important need to reduce stress among Black women today. There's a strong desire among those surveyed for the creation of more well-being tools and resources specifically tailored to Black women's needs. Racism and discrimination are the top barriers Black women must overcome to gain better access to mental health resources. The majority say access to resources that address the unique experiences of Black women would make them more inclined to use mental health resources. Black women are doing too much. 66% say they overexert themselves to excel in the workplace and to take care of personal responsibilities. And there's a need to improve workplaces, as 1 in 2 believe today's work environments do not provide safe spaces for Black women to share their feelings and discuss their stresses. That perspective really rings true, not just when you could pick a demographic, and other than for white males, many, particularly women and various minority groups, would feel that the issues that cause them stress in the workplace are not considered. And I just want to add this note. Just as we find that the media impacts the attitudes about how people, about relationships and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of behavior, we can look at going back to, no, I'm not gonna test my memory and say what year, but I started my program in 2012. And when I started doing this research on how media impacted attitudes and behavior, most people did not want to be racist. And most white Americans did not want to be racist. And if they learned that their behavior was racist, then they would attempt to correct it. Well, that's because at that time it was not acceptable in society. Now we have an administration and a bully pulpit that encourages not just racial bias, but bias, period, against various groups based on ability, based on color, based on your political party. I mean, there are so many areas where people are members of an out group, which means that you don't have the allies that you once considered. So it makes it a greater challenge for these various groups and requires a willingness to overcome and to just step across the road and talk to other audiences, other people who are not members of your in-group, to develop relationships despite what you're hearing from the media. I think there's hope, but there's also determination and taking care of oneself. Self-care, your own well-being is, I think, the first step. And just to add that I'm just so excited to see that so much of our research is focused on self-care. And Lord, I hope, look, I think I've gone way over time, Katie. I forgot I was watching and then I quit watching. But anyway, next slide, please. So my study is in progress. I had to pivot. So the results will be reported to ISI when it's completed, but the audience that I initially targeted for my study, my initial sample, things changed. And so the direction of my study has to change a bit too. But, the work continues, and I think the work is important, more important now than ever. As we have so many Black people not just looking at how they survive in the workplace, because we'll see that so many Black women have pivoted and started businesses. And that's another study, but that's also something that is very relevant and real, and how women and Black women manage in the business environment is another set of issues, many of which are similar to those challenges that they face in the work environment. So I want to thank you and for your time and your attention. And my references are many, and I'll be glad to share them with you. I couldn't get them all on the page, so I just said forget it. I can send them to anybody who wants them. Thank you so much.
If I can get
It is
myself
done.
unmuted, I will thank you as well, Susan. Great presentation. And as difficult as some of the news is around a lot of things, it's really encouraging to have you and everyone else who's presented really looking for solutions and ways to help people take care of themselves and each other. I think that's kind of a theme I see in everything we heard. So I just want to congratulate you and everyone for the work you're doing. Um, we are close to the end of our time, but if there are any questions for Susan, now is the time. Yes, Akua.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I appreciated learning about your research. We share common interests, and so I'm really going to be keeping my ears and eyes open to see what you learn and what you discover, because we have a couple of areas of overlap, workplace wellness, Black women, and yeah, interested to learn more from what you learn. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Akua. I saw your presentation and said, oh, isn't this exciting? You just focused in on Black women and well-being. So I'm excited to hear your presentation too.
And Dr.
Thank
Dean.
you.
Thank you for that amazing presentation, Dr. Susan. I think being able to find data that supports what people have been thinking and feeling is important. In the comments, I have put an infographic for one of my colleagues, and she's focusing on what used to be called DEI, and now the terminology has changed.
Mhm.
And her business is focused on making sure that people who have been recipients of DEI funding from the government can continue. They just changed what the terminology is called. Um, and so if people want to be in a beta testing of her calculator, which helps people with who are in the DEI space to actually evaluate their value and prove why there needs to be this sector in corporate America, then please feel free to reach out to her. And if you don't get through to her, you can always connect with me and I will assist you in that effort, because it's very important that people see the holistic uh, point of view when it comes to who we are as Americans. And, I think earlier when Deb was putting the dates of major things for women, I, I remember what a friend of mine said, and she was one of my mentors, and she said she had to have her husband okay everything she did, including getting birth control. And
Mm.
I just was like, what? You know, it's to see the dates that only recently, what did you say, 1988 for women to be able to take a business loan. And I'm trying to think, where was I in 1988? How old was I and what was going on? So these types of things we really need to be aware of. So thank you, Dr. Susan, for your presentation. And again, in the chat is where I put the infographic if anyone's interested in looking at that and moving forward to be in her beta testing. She has created a calculator that you can do on her website for free. And then if you want to do a deep dive, that's available for you. But
Thank
Save the
you.
chat so everyone can have it. Deb, you will have the last question or comment.
You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so thank you for this amazing work, and it's horrifying, what I put in the chat, what's going on, just completely horrifying. I would really love, as you wrap your head around this, to help us know how to support your voice. I want to figure out a way to host you to speak to some of my groups, because your presentation style, the way you did it, your slides were gorgeous. I hate to say gorgeous about such a hard topic, but they were. It just it's such an important approach, let's just say, of putting out all of what is going on in a very important way. And I just thank you for being willing to do this work. So many people I know are just, head in the sand doing the ostrich. And I I I just want to cheer you on and help you if you need grunt work, whatever you need, like call me. I really want to help you. And um what you were talking about, I got disconnected right as you were in the middle of the Tradwife presentation, but there is a student that I have been working with. He's 25, has been got a master's degree in organic chemistry from a liberal university, has been in the liberal world, and all of a sudden has been dating a woman for about 9 months, and he just got baptized in a traditional church where the preacher was talking exactly this and speaking that this woman that you are considering marrying is going to be subservient to you, and he's like agreeing to this. And he invited me to see his baptism, and I had no idea what church I was walking into, but I wanted to support him, and I just sat there. It was surreal to see that, and the amount of young people that were there. It's so.
That's the hard part, because people get radicalized about different issues. We think about people getting radicalized who are Muslims to become terrorists. No, women got radicalized during the pandemic about this trad wife movement.
Yes.
Young men and men have been radicalized, and that's where we get toxic masculinity. This stuff is going on every day and is global. And folks have no clue because they think it just popped up. No, it did not. It's been going on for a long time. And unless, first of all, if you have kids, you need to be totally engaged and all in their business. I don't care what they say about wanting privacy. You need to be in their business and in their head so you can know what they think. Because if you don't talk to them like your friend, he's over there at that church. I don't know if his family knew that this is what these people are telling him, and that in Texas, which is where I live now, they even they passed a law that said that it's against the law for a woman. You have no reproductive rights. They wanted husbands to turn in their wives if their wives considered having an abortion. I mean, these people are passing legislation that affects our lives. This is not just idle chatter. So that's why I think I'm so passionate about what we can do. First of all, knowing, and then looking at what we can do and educating people, and certainly empowering women to realize that you have worth and you have value. I mean, really, like I said, and I lobbied for ERA in 1973. Do you see how far we've come? And to think that we have to tell women that you have worth and you have value in 2025, that's mind-blowing to me. Something happened somewhere. It's just mind-blowing. So the work we do together and to support one another helps each of us. I mean, that's what is required. This is not an individual sprint. This requires all hands on deck, because the media outlets are being bought up by conservatives, and there are fewer and fewer people who own the media outlets, and they have impact on what stories you see and what you don't see, the news and what you hear and the stories that you don't hear. So it really all ties together. It is all a strategy. It's just that we think they're disparate parts. There aren't. They are not disparate. So I've been doing the work I do. I was a communication strategist in national politics. I've been doing that for a long time. And I have watched this evolve and morph into from where we were when this was a concept to where we are now when it is an overwhelming perspective, especially where it has taken over our political institutions and make the laws that impact what happens in our lives. And it's because people aren't aware. They don't know that you really do have to pay attention, because it really does affect you and your life and your children. And you have no clue. So anyway, here we are. We did the best we can.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you again, Susan, for the work you do, and Lisa, Nina, and Deb for the work you do, and all of you I know are in your own ways involved. And I think, as Susan said, we're all in this together in a lot of ways as well. So thank you all for everything you do, and thank you all for being here. I hope you can come back tomorrow and hear some of the presentations then. I think there'll be, well, definitely, we know there is, Dr. Akua Feathers will be talking about women's well-being then as well. So hope that is a topic that we can continue talking about. So for tonight, I will say good night, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Katie.
Take care. Bye-bye.